Good morning, and welcome to Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This year, we are happy to be working with Cal Poly Pomona, and we have a lot of things to talk about with the explosion of AI and phishing. One of the big things that we're seeing as far as the CSU is an increase in more sophistication. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with AI. Today on the call, we have two universities. We have Cal State University Chico and California State University Channel Islands. A little bit about both campuses. We have the youngest and the newest in CSUCI. And Chico actually is the second oldest campus, which I was not aware of. At CSUCI, our mascot is Echo the Dolphin. And at CSU Chico, it's Willie the Wildcat. And obviously, Cal Poly Pomona, it's the Cal Poly Broncos. So we welcome everybody in the CSU to this presentation, and we'll get started here. Again, we're doing this because this is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This is a time where security professionals try to make the message clear to everybody about what you can do to increase your cybersecurity awareness and how to improve your stance overall. Right now, we've seen such a spike in this area with advanced threat actors, scammers. I mean, it's not one day goes by where I don't get a phone call or an email with someone trying to pull a scam. And let's talk a little bit about our speakers today. We are very lucky. We have a couple speakers to talk about this in general as far as AI and phishing and threat actors. And let's start with our first person here from Cal State Channel Islands, Chris Murphy.
Hello, everybody. Carlos, thanks for the invite here. I am Chris Murphy. I'm with California State University Channel Islands uh, for over 20 years now. I've been with the CSU for my entire career, and actually, I was part of the first freshman class here at Cal State Channel Islands. And so it's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to discussing AI with you all.
And Chris, what is your role at Channel Islands?
I'm the manager of user services here, responsible for endpoint management and automation, as well as for our help desk.
Sounds good. My name is Carlos Miranda. I'm actually a former Cal Poly Pomona Bronco, so it's nice to be back working with the campus in a role. I'm currently at CSUCI with Chris. I actually had his role when I first got here. I was the manager of user services. Now I'm leading the information technology security team, and we deal with a lot of scams. And if there's ways that we can help the campus to be better informed, we try to do that. An event like this is one way. And another thing is I work with Chris. Once we find machines that maybe are compromised, I give him a lot of work. So I keep him busy. Before I even got into this issue, I served time in the military. I was actually stationed in Hawaii at a light infantry division, and that was a lot of fun. And then our next person on this committee is from Cal State Chico. Chris?
Good morning. Thank you, Carlos. So, Chris Wittans, I've spent almost 18 years of my entire career here at Chico State. I joined our information security team a little over 10 years ago. And then had a brief stint at Sacramento State where I was a risk analyst. And then I came back to Chico State as the information security officer and also director of identity and access management. And so part of some of the things I'm responsible for here on our campus is sort of twofold. We do a lot of response in the way of phishing attacks and incident response and really maintaining the security posture of our campus. Also, managing identities, so campus identities involving user account creation, security, duo, multi-factor, provisioning services, those sorts of things. That's the other hat that I hold here at Chico State.
So before we get into the threat actors, we're going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence in general, and I'll hand it over to Chris from Channel Islands.
All right, thank you. So I wanted to briefly talk and just introduce for those that might not be aware, kind of what is AI, where it is today, where it's going. I think everybody's probably aware of AI. It is the buzzword right now. It's rapidly evolving and it's absolutely reshaping how we're interacting with technology and with each other. And so there's a few different types of AI. There's generative AI, which is your chat GPT, for example. And this is Think of this as a creative artist. This is something that is taking its knowledge, its vast store of data, and it's creating something entirely new and unique. So generative AI, you prompt it to do something, or you ask it a question, and it comes back with an answer that has never been seen before. So you can imagine an AI painting a picture that's never been seen before, or writing a poem that resonates with human emotion. And so that's kind of the power of generative AI. Image-based AI is similar. Think of that as analyzing pixels in an image and trying to understand what it is that they're seeing. Uh, that seems kind of strange for a computer to be able to do that and to be able to come up with its own interpretation, but that's what it's doing. And that technology is used, for tagging your photos on social media and understanding who is somebody in a picture. Uh, and it's being heavily used to advance fields like healthcare, security, and transportation. Think of medical scan interpretation, or self-driving cars and how they navigate the world. And then there's language-based AI. Think of this as a human language generation, having a conversation. This is what makes AI uh, feel intelligent. This is also what can power some really neat things like real-time language translation, having a conversation with someone in another part of the world, and and there not being any delay with that conversation. So that's pretty exciting, in how that's breaking down some communication barriers and opening up possibilities for global collaboration. And then, of course, in my mind, or my opinion, the most intriguing, interesting part is just the adaptive learning piece of AI, right? And that's its ability to improve over time. It's also a little scary, and I think Chris and Carlos are going to talk about that. AI becomes more personalized and efficient. It starts to know who you are. My interaction with ChatGPT, for example, is going to be very different than a similar prompt that Carlos or Chris would put into ChatGPT, just because it's learning from the way I communicate with it. Uh, we can tailor educational content to individual learning styles, and that's pretty exciting. It makes education more accessible. And the systems aren't just learning; they're evolving with us. We this is new. There's a lot of ethical concerns along with it, and we're trying to ensure that AI is learning the right lessons, so to speak. Uh, I like to use an example. I think these guys on the call have probably heard it, but not too long ago, there's floating around the internet. Someone asked ChatGPT, "Why is my pasta sauce not sticking to my pasta, and how can I improve that?" And ChatGPT came back and it provided a great answer. It said, "These are some things you can do," and most of them made a lot of sense. But one of them, which I thought was just pretty funny, was you should add some non-toxic glue to your pasta sauce, and that'll help it stick to the pasta. And of course, that's true, right? AI isn't telling you a lie. It used real data, but it shows the limitation, right? This is not, if you were to ask a chef or any human how to make your pasta sauce stick, they're not going to say to add glue to it. But what's interesting, the adaptive learning piece is that same prompt today won't provide that, right? It has been taught or learned that glue is not good for human consumption, and it is continuing to improve. Uh, and so as we look into the future, I think the evolution of AI promises to bring some pretty groundbreaking changes. It's an exciting time for all of us. And as students and future leaders, you'll be at the forefront of this. And my opinion's not going anywhere. I think that cat is out of the bag, and I think we need to embrace these opportunities. But there are some major challenges, and Chris and Carlos are going to talk about some of the big ones where they're related to security. Thanks, Carlos.
So as Chris mentioned, AI has exploded recently, And with that, there's always someone who's going to take advantage of it. And before you would get a phishing email that would say, hey, I'm a Nigerian prince and, I'm going to leave all this money, right? And it'd be grammar issues, spelling issues. And now with the power of AI, you can have it really craft a phishing email specific for an area or a country. And they can help you overcome some of the grammatical and the spelling errors that you would see previously and make them even more realistic. And I'll show you some examples of that. And if you don't, if you want to even go further as a threat actor, you can do what's pay as a service and you can use Worm GPT. Worm GPT is ChatGPT's malicious cousin, and it will help you create, craft, and do everything for you for a fee, which we'll get into a little bit. So just in general, right? If I go into ChatGPT and I say, hey, I want an email and I want to specifically target Cal State Long Beach and I want to target their finance department. And I want this to be a phishing email, an email, not phishing email, but just put an email where I want them to click on an attachment. And ChatGPT before originally would do that and create something for you. Now there's safeguards in place that will say, well, this is not something I'm comfortable doing. So it's kind of learning, right, that this is being used for some nefarious reason. So that's where kind of Worm GPT kind of came out because he doesn't care. He will create that realistic phishing email for someone and exactly the way you want it. And again, like we mentioned, this is the variant of ChatGPT on the dark web where it's AI driven and it's a pay service where you can go on there and say, hey, I want to use Worm GPT to kind of create these phishing scams. And it's very, very good. It's accessible, and it will definitely craft the phishing emails and the threats towards whatever you're targeting. And again, this is done through the dark web. And like I mentioned, the example, right, where you're saying, I want a specific target university, a specific department. And I've seen where it will go in and it will use its AI to kind of figure out who works there, what their positions are, and craft the email where it could be very generic, very specific if you want to. And if you say, I want to, have a file they'll click on, it will create that email for you specifically. And again, customization, right? It's constantly learning, so it's going out and seeing what it can do. It's automating the threats, so you don't have to be a real skillful computer scientist or a developer or a programmer to write these things or these languages. They can give you some basic coding. It again, there's no ethical constraints, right? This is a weaponized version of ChatGPT that's just going to do whatever you're wanting of it. And again, we're seeing where threat actors are kind of using something like this to send out phishing emails. Again, I'm not sure how current this was, but last time I checked, there was a monthly fee of $108, or you get the yearly discount for 600, where you can just go and constantly craft your phishing emails and your scams. Um, Again, this is closed to basically unethical groups, hackers, threat actors, nation states. That's the thing that we're seeing too in general. I'm on a lot of ISAC calls, which is, information security professionals, where they get together and talk about security issues. And they're saying how nation states who, may not understand English or the United States very well can use a platform like this and craft really sophisticated phishing emails to go after, different entities. Recently we heard about Donald Trump being hacked through a phishing email from the Iranian government. So you're wondering, like, hey, and obviously the Iranians are probably really skillful, but maybe they did use something like a Worm GPT to kind of go after that target group. And again, this is, out there, it's being used, and it's really, really has expanded. Like I said, even here at Cal State Channel Islands, we're not really seeing the phishing emails like we did maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Now they're a little bit more sophisticated. They're created a lot better, so it makes our job now a little bit harder because the red flags aren't as many as before, and this is something we're seeing. And again, in this email here, I did this maybe 6 months ago, where I said I want to see what ChatGPT will do. So I told them, hey, the university president is Dr. Richard Yao. That's our president. And I said, I want you to do an email for me where they will open a document, and I want you to ask them that it's important they do this for an upcoming presidential event. And 6 months ago, ChatGPT did this for me. It crafted this email that you're seeing on the screen. It had no issues with it. And then just recently, as I was preparing for this presentation, I said, let me see if I can do this again. And it would not do the same thing for me anymore. And as you can see, it said the attachment strategic plan draft. And it's basically saying that our president's asking his group that he's working on the strategic plan and he needs their help. And if they can look at the document so they can kind of help edit it or review it. And it was, this is pretty good. I have to give ChatGPT credit. And again, this is all free, right? This is not even Worm GPT. So I was able to get a lot off of ChatGPT. But, that enough of Cal State Channel Islands. Let's hear about how Cal State University Chico is dealing with these threats.
Well, thank you, Carlos. So as you can see, my background is actually from our second annual Festival of Fishes. So it was an all day, well, half a day interactive opportunity that we had with our campus communities to raise awareness around a lot of the common issues around information security, specifically around phishing. What we see of and what we can think really tell is AI is actually increasing the pace and also the deceptiveness and the I think the realistic nature of what some of these messages that we're starting to see in terms of fish at a pace that we've never really seen ever before. Because of that, these threat actors are financially motivated. So they are financially driven to make the message types of phishing messages that are usually intercepted by, mostly students, that raises their urgency factor on, clicking on links, providing their personal information to, form type websites that are really designed to do credential harvesting and user kind of personal information harvesting, that is later used and replayed to wage larger scale phishing attacks on our campus. And this is not unique to Chico State. This is really anywhere. And so AI has really sped up that effort. And so on our side, at least with our operations team, we've really had to ramp up the types of detections, ways that we're looking for compromised accounts, in ways that in some areas that we really haven't calculated before. It's very challenging when user accounts, especially for folks that fall for a phishing scam, provide their information. If they are able to get past our dual multi-factor authentication, that is technically a valid login, right? When you have your username, your password, and your duo, and everything checks, it really works against our ability on providing reactive detection, those sorts of things. So we in our operations team have had to work very closely with other areas and other stakeholders on our campus, specifically in student financial services, on increasing the level of auditing that we're doing for things like direct deposit modifications and things so we can start to really track those sorts of things. That's really the damaging effects of what phishing has given us. But some of the messages that you'll see, and it's very clear that these are AI driven, is that they'll commonly misspell or misrepresent or mistitle departments or titles or things that look very kind of close, like where it'll say like IT support. We have no IT support office here. We have IT support services, right? So you can kind of see that there's AI will kind of fall away from sort of the kind of the normal vocabulary and vernacular that we would be accustomed to. But for the untrained person or untrained individual, they're not going to know those differences. University personnel, we're going to know very quickly, yeah, this is something that's fraudulent. But for your average student or your average person that, is just going to school here, they're not going to know that. So what does this come down to? So beyond all of our reactionary defense mechanisms, we have tools that we have implemented in our environment that allow automated containment and quarantine. So as soon as messages are reported, they go through a machine learning language, another AI service, but it actually is a service that we subscribe to that'll actually score messages. It'll detect that they're threats and they'll begin quarantining those from user mailboxes. So we've been able to mitigate a lot of this damaging effects of compromised accounts. Usually, threat actors, they like to compromise accounts because once they're in your organization, they're now inside. They can blast your global address list and they can get, whatever, junk that they want to get sent out that, is semi-believable to the untrained person. So that's the pieces that we're really working to respond to. what does this come down to is security awareness and training. We send a lot of targeted communication to our students, raising awareness specifically around times of like financial aid disbursement on getting the word out, making folks aware that, hey, there are very real risks. Be very wary on the emails and the types of requests you're being asked to fulfill or meet. And all period of doubt, really work with our financial aid office or official departments on clarifying any messages you might receive because it's very possible what you receive is not really legitimate to begin with. But raising that security awareness, we provide what we've termed as periodic security awareness training. So we have 5-minute brief modules that we assigned all of our students, staff, and faculty to complete. So it really just kind of brings in new knowledge on areas which, folks might be somewhat unfamiliar of. The idea is that we're trying to raise our level of consciousness of beyond that just natural ability of reacting. When you see something, you're going to have a little bit of knowledge. If especially it's an AI driven spam message that folks receive, they know, hey, wait, this is something I should be reporting, not responding to. So it's a very big challenge, but it really comes down to security awareness. Making sure that folks, when you receive if you're using a second factor authentication solution, if you're receiving prompts you didn't initiate, to deny those requests. Oftentimes folks are trained to approve everything that they see, and that ultimately can absolutely lead to an account becoming, further compromised. But it really gets down to security awareness, raising that factor of just that knowledge is really how we beat this system. So that's what I have.
So, the question becomes, is AI a friend or foe? It might be a little early for that yet. For now, it's really a useful technology. But Chris, as far as the different AI engines, you have Google Gemini, you have ChatGPT, and you have several others. Where do you think will be the leader of the pack in a couple of years, or do you think they will all still be fighting? Chris Murphy, sorry.
I was going to say you're going to have to be more specific. Uh, I think like anything, there will be leaders here. That said, the model that they're being trained on makes such a difference. And I think what we're going to see is I think we're going to see more specialized AI. I think we're going to continue to see, uh, the generic chat GPT that kind of is the catch-all of AI. But then we're going to see, hey, you're into I don't know, aeronautics, right? And there will be an AI that has all of the data built around, the data that exists around aeronautics, and that'll be the spot you'll go to ask questions and do things related to that subject. And so specialization, I think, is where we're headed.
So as Chris from Chico mentioned, right, AI is kind of a friend and a foe for him at his campus, right? They're using AI to combat the phishing threats that are coming in, but he's definitely seen that. He mentioned that, while the spelling, the grammatical errors aren't there, they're still mislabeling titles, right? And that's how they're kind of seeing that. Chris, from Chico, as far as deepfakes, what have you seen as far as deepfakes and synthetic media, or any attacks like that yet at your campus?
In all honesty, I have not seen instances of that yet. However, that is a huge concern just with the advancement and capability of what deepfakes can do and what the impacts that they can have on the untrained or someone that might not be aware of that. It's a huge, huge concern. I myself haven't seen it firsthand here, but it is something that, in addition to AI and its ability of, allowing threat actors to create, very genuine appearing phishing messages that can at least get past that, I guess that common sense level. It's a scary and very real thing that I think folks should really be aware of and cognizant of.
And also, because everything now is automated, it's much easier to real at a large scale, right, to send out these attacks. So we're constantly working with our security providers to try to help kind of mitigate some of these issues.
Yeah.
But, we are seeing, more of a highly sophisticated emails and phishing
Correct.
attacks. I can only imagine what the current presidential candidates are going through
Yep.
through right now with their IT teams, because the scale of the attacks, because of the AI,
Mhm.
the automation, and they're able to really do things now that wasn't available just a couple of years
Correct.
ago. And with natural language processing, they are starting to be a lot smarter as far as titles, maybe different names of the organization. Like for us, we're Information Technology Services, and maybe they're starting to see that hey, CSU Chico doesn't call their IT department that, and they're able to also do multiple languages. So not only are these phishing emails crafted in English, but they could be really tailored to go in other areas. So
Right.
these are all concerning things for us.
Yes.
And they're also bypassing traditional security. While our systems are signature based sometimes and looking for patterns,
Yeah.
some of these are not what you normally would see as far as being able to be detected. And that really is a huge concern for us.
Mhm.
With the increase of AI in general, right? You see, Google with Gemini,
Mhm.
Microsoft and Apple are both going to with ChatGPT. Everything now is really going to be focused on using these AI tools. And for us, the biggest thing around AI and even a threat like a phishing email would be data classification. But Chris, what are your thoughts on that with AI, data classification, and making sure that you're not part of a huge breach?
So what we're doing right now, and I think that for a lot of organizations, this is going to be a very challenging topic because AI is here and it's emerging in areas that we least expect. A lot of tools that we are accustomed to, internet browsers, office productivity tools, are providing AI forward type features and things that we didn't necessarily ask for the AI to be there, but the vendor is kind of pushing that on. The best way that we're going to be tackling this here at our campus is really developing a generative AI or a Gen AI usage guideline that can kind of walk through at a high level some of the expectations around, using these tools for good, really putting some clear definition around what we have defined as confidential and protected data, reminding users that they're using AI tools, to consider it as information that you're submitting to the open internet. What information would you not want to provide to the open internet? I mean, that can be very well connected to tools that you use with AI. The other pieces that I'm working on right now is really, educating users, and we can do this through our generative AI guideline is, if you're selecting a generative AI tool, and then there's not one tool that, I would recommend one over the other, is to be very aware of the terms of service and how the vendor is planning to and how the vendor is expressing how they're going to be protecting their data. Right. So if you think about personal use versus commercial use, we talk about that a lot with licensing, but that also very well applies to the generative AI tool. Is the information that you're uploading going to be contained with a protected instance, or is it going to be, used to train commercial AI large language models beyond your subscription? So it's something very, important to call out. But just being aware of those fundamental facts and also really just being aware of confidential information, not uploading copyrighted material, things that, really can't be used in those sorts of things is just to be aware of what that is and what the challenges are as the big next step.
So, Chris, we talked a lot about AI and the way that is influencing the way threat actors use phishing emails. But in general, what could just an everyday student do as far as protect themselves just in general from phishing emails? What's your advice for that?
Yeah, just I think that's a great question, Carlos. I think just having general awareness of, every message that someone receives, there's a higher percentage chance that some of those messages might not be legitimate. So if you're getting a message that is asking you to, click here to verify your account or click here to do whatever, or respond here and you'll get a dog walking job that pays $500 weekly, or your baby grand piano, or I think the last couple weeks ago we had a welder for sale. these are all ways to entice folks to fall for it. And so to really just be on your guard. And I think just knowing, trying to understand the source of the message, if it doesn't look I think the biggest advice, especially if you receive, and for students, if you receive a message that looks like it's coming from a department, call and contact them. Call them by phone, look them up in your official campus directory, walk to their office. If there's something there that doesn't seem quite right, it's probably because it's not. So that's
I'm
something I would follow up with.
I'm going to add a little to that too, is also contact your information security department.
Absolutely.
Chris and I are here to help you guys. If you ever have a question, on our campus, we advertise all the time. This is how you reach us. This is how you can get help if you ever have a question. And by far, the best thing you can do right now is multi-factor, because if somehow they get into your account and they get your password or they do something, you have that extra layer of defense so they can't go any
Yep.
further. And obviously at the CSU, we have multi-factor in place, but we
Yeah.
don't tell you what to do on your personal accounts. But for me, on my Amazon, my bank, anywhere I can enable multi-factor, I do. And I
Right.
highly recommend that you do that as an extra layer of defense. Uh, and Chris, I'll give you the last thoughts.
Yeah, and just to kind of dovetail on that, Carlos, is that, I think the biggest piece and the biggest way that we see user accounts becoming compromised are, if you receive a Duo prompt notification, or if you're using another MFA provider. Sorry, I keep using Duo, but if you're using any kind of MFA service that if it uses any kind of push notification or a short message service or an SMS text message, if you receive something that you didn't initiate, there is no harm, there's no foul for denying that request or just deleting it outright. I
And
think
report it.
and report it, because the bad guys have your password. If they're able to get Duo or whatever MFA service you're using to try to get you to approve a request, they have your username and password. So the best guess there is to reset your password as the next step.
And we'd like to thank you guys for being part of this webinar. It's important that you get yourself educated, you find out a little bit things of the new emerging uh, th threats, the trends, and everything else that's going in information security. I'd like to thank Cal Poly Pomona for allowing us time to, educate people, can make them aware of this. I'd like to thank Chris Murphy from Cal State Channel Islands, myself, and then Chris from Cal State University Chico. My last words of advice is, be aware of what's coming in. Don't click on everything. Set up multi-factor. And if you are, you need to be knowledgeable. Resources are on campus to help you, because that can save you a lot of money, a lot of painful experiences. And Chris, what's your last words before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just if there's any opportunity to maybe take a quick training, or if you, during the month of October, if there's a webinar or something that piques your interest to raise your awareness around information security, highly encourage that. I mean, really what a lot of these incidents boil down to is really security awareness. So if there's any opportunity to learn about, new ways that threat actors are employing social engineering tactics on stealing your information. Those threats are always evolving. So I think just being aware of what those common trends are in any way or avenue that you can will really be your best defense.
Again, thank you, Chris, from
Sure.
Cal State University Chico. This was a lot of fun, and
Yes.
we hope that everybody learned a lot. So thank you again.